Okay, so good evening. Hi, Rich Dunn. How are you?
I'm doing very well, Stephanie. How about yourself?
Good, thank you. And I appreciate you taking the time to speak with me and really the purpose of this is so that to have an opportunity to talk a little bit about the issues that are important to the families and our families and our community of children with special needs. So I appreciate you taking the opportunity, making yourself available this evening.
Anytime, Steph. You know that I come from the special needs family of
Mhm.
Overage residents who have children's with issues, and quite frankly, we are a close knit group. We support and help each other, and we've cried and done a lot of things together to make things a bit easier for ourselves. And we're here to support one another, and I appreciate you being such a wonderful advocate of children with special needs, and plus the families who have love and genuine, affection for their children and want to do everything in their best interest.
Absolutely. It's funny. I remember when we first started our parent group about 8 years ago. I think you came to some of our early meetings. So when we used to have them in the at the library, so in the Old Bridge Library. So I appreciate your support of our CPAG for all these years.
Absolutely.
So our first question is, when we hear terms like inclusion, diversity, and equity, how do you believe that students with disabilities fit into these principles in our district? And as a Board of Education member, how will you advocate for true inclusion and equity for all students?
Well, that's something I've always been fighting for ever since I got on board in 2011. I've always fought for children with the special needs situation. For the simple fact is, I had my daughter who has ASD, and she's been diagnosed with other items and a lot of social skills problems. And I get it very much. And one reason why I did run for the board back in 2011 is because I wanted to have a voice. For the children who were affected, greatly from their disability. And I was able to do that. I was elected, and at that time, Allison Voss played a very critical position. This is before CPAG.
Yeah.
SEPTA did play a critical role with giving the parents the support. But when CPAG came along, you gave advocacy and brought it to a different level because of worrying about the collaboration and going into different arenas and places to figure out what was important and what was good for our kids. But inclusion is very important because inclusion means that our children all need to be included. And I've always supported fair and equitable education for all students. And I continue fighting for that. I do apologize because of my dogs.
It's
Um,
okay.
it's just, I guess my wife may be coming in, but I've always fought
Can't hear anything.
for inclusion for all children. All children must be treated equally, given the same opportunities. Yes, some need more services than others, but that's a given, and we need to support our children with special needs. They deserve the opportunity that all children do. They need to have the same exact type of schedules. They need to have the same exact routines. They need to be treated equally in all fashions because they learn from their peers, they learn from others, and to segregate children with special needs is disingenuous and inappropriate. And we find that when special needs children are incorporated and assimilated into regular learning environments with the help, they thrive. And all children must be treated equally, no matter what. I know there's a lot of issues out there with people worrying about DEI and all that. Yeah, every child, like I said at the candidates night, we need to continue pushing for the diversity and inclusion and make sure that everyone and children with special needs are at the pinnacle. They need the support, they need the love, they need to learn from others, and being in a normal educational atmosphere is really rocket fuel for them to assimilate and to learn in a way where they succeed from other children.
Absolutely, absolutely. Um, and and with that. as we know, part of the work that we do as a parent group is we look at the policies, and and really a lot of it is about looking at the policies at that come down from, from the state level that they're then asking school districts to, to implement. So the different policies that are out there, and as a parent group, we're looking at those policies and programs and practices to ensure that there is equity and access and inclusion of all students. How will you approach decision making on policies that impact students with disabilities?
Well, you know what? I was in that position in 2011. I felt that when I ran for the board, there wasn't a voice for the special needs children and their families. And I served on the Board of Education for 10 years, and I've always been an advocate. And I believe the best way, Steph, is to engage everyone who's a stakeholder in the special needs community to understand what their needs are, what their philosophy is on how to best deal with their particular situation, because each situation is different. And you know what? You have to collaborate with the parents. The parents know their children best, and the parents need to be heard. A lot of times, and I've seen it firsthand, that the administration, they don't hear us. They just want to do what's in the best interest of the district sometimes, and not for the child. And I want to continue being that advocate of making sure that the children who deserve the finest education, and given that extra sense of attention, get it. But I think the best way of doing that is to bring the parents in, listen to them. They know their children best, and see what they need, and develop policy and protocol for the district based upon our special needs community. We're a very tight bunch. Like I mentioned, there's more and more children today who are being diagnosed with different issues. And, right now our district is about 1/3 receiving special services in some way. And, that's because of new technology that's out there, new ways of diagnosing. I know when I was growing up, in the 70s and 80s, we would just, children with, different characteristic issues which are thrown into the mix. But we're fortunate now that there can be identified and dealt with. And we need, as a Board of Education, is to understand that. We need to make sure our administration and our leadership at the special services level understand that, sometimes the parents know better than us as administrators, because they deal with their child every day. And if the parent is being that advocate and needs something, we should hear and provide. But I think by bringing in the parents and letting them help us mold the policy, I think that would be more an effective way to make sure that the parents are heard and what they need is given.
To your point, last night was the curriculum and special services committee meetings last night, and special services was presenting and giving us some of the the facts and the data on students and things going on in the district. I actually stopped and asked a question. I was surprised to see that there's over 100 preschoolers in our district that are classified. 100. I had no idea that the number was so high. I didn't realize we had so many preschoolers, and especially with my son. He's in 8th grade now. Back when he was in preschool, it was a much smaller program when he was in preschool, and it's my understanding from in my asking Dr. Tui about that last night that they've had to add more classes, and they're starting at the preschool level with more classes. So to your point about the increase in the number of children that are being diagnosed, it was surprising to see how many in the younger preschoolers that are that have the diagnosis. Then there's 100 that are already in the district, and then from that we're creating then moving the kids then to kindergarten. So and so that's when we talk about the classifying kids, and as a Board of Ed member, when you on the board, how much it costs to educate a child with a disability in a school district versus a child with a general education student. So how do you continue to have those hard conversations? And I have to say, that our district has always done a really great job over the years of, despite the S2 and state aid reductions, they've done a great job of protecting and making sure that our children who are receiving special education services are not impacted by it. But how do you continue as a board member, and how will you as a board member protect that and make sure that services aren't taken away?
So that's a very good question, and quite frankly, we continue doing what, or at least what I do, is to ensure that our students with special needs get what they deserve, and you know what, I've always committed myself to that, and if I'm fortunate enough to be put back on the board, I'm going to continue that to fight to make sure that our most challenged children who need the extra services get it. And I know that right now we spend anywhere from $19,000 to $21,000 on a special needs child for the services, but that's a drop in the bucket. I think we do it very effectively. We do it correctly in this district. Gen ed student, we pay about $12,000. So there is a big difference, but that's money well spent, because if we are able to impact that child's life, early intervention, having a preschool program that recognizes children with special issues, then we will be able to effectively deal with it at an earlier stage, and it gives them a good head start in life. The earlier you can diagnose something, the quicker you can engage, and quicker the result will be what you're hoping for. We're very lucky that this district has always been very pro special services. We've always had great leadership. We've always spent the money, and we're going to continue that. And as long as I'm on the board, I'm always going to fight for our children who have these difficulties, because you know what, they deserve the same fair and equitable education as all students. And honestly, I believe that our district needs to employ more programs. I think we need more social skills programs. We have a great social skills resource room now that was built at the GNC, and that's helpful. These things we can do more of, and I think that we can expand our programs. And I've always been an advocate to expand our programs, because we have extra space now, and we have such a large population of special needs students that I think that we can give more services. And I've always believed that, since we've always had very advantageous programs, and programs that were actually were actually revered by many other districts, that we could start giving our services out, and bringing more kids in and giving them services. So that's one of those battles that I've always loved fighting, because I see the work when children are happy, children are learning, and when you're a parent seeing your child become more independent, and you see the progress, that puts a smile on your face, because we all as parents want the very best for our children, and we want them to succeed. And you know what? That's very heartening when people come up to me and say, "Hey, Rich, you've been a supporter of the special services programs in all children, and my children benefited, from the services." And one one thing to the thought we had earlier about preschool. That's why it was so important that we get full day kindergarten in place in 2013, because it was going to help all children. It was going to give them the head start. And when my daughter was in the program, she was a half day student at Carpenter School, back in 2007, 2008. And, half day was helpful, but a full
But not
day
enough.
situation would have been more
Absolutely.
productive. It would have given her a better foundation. But luckily, we had a great principal in Mr. Phillips. Jack was a terrific man, and you know what? That was the perfect program for him to be the principal of the special services early childhood program. My daughter got services at 3 years old, and it was a half day situation. And I'm glad that we're at full day now, and these services are important. And as long as I'm involved with the Board of Ed in the school district, I am going to be the leading advocate for all children who have special needs, because I've lived it, I've seen it, I've dealt with parents, we've cried together. And you know what? When you have a support network, and that you have people who are advocating for you, that are true to their word, that goes a long way to making you feel somewhat settled about the future of your child's life.
Absolutely. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the diversity. So it's extending beyond just special children with disabilities is looking at the fact that Old Bridge is a very diverse town, and how and recognizing that not all families look alike and not all families are the same. And so when we're thinking about, again, going back to policy and things that we are looking to implement, how will you make space at meetings to, or just as a board member, to hear and respect the diversity of families that are in our town?
Well, diversity of this town is extraordinary, and that's what makes Old Bridge so special. Is that for our community of 75,000 people, we are extremely diverse, and we have people from every walk of life, every different nationality, every different religion, and quite honestly, I'm very pleased to see how well we get along together. And that's refreshing. And you know what? We're all here together, living in the community, and we have to, find a way to assimilate and to help one another. So, the diversity is a good thing, as far as I'm concerned. And it not only goes from the family makeup, whatever it's religion or ethnicity, but also when children have difficulties and seem different on the inside when they interact. And you know what? That's what I love about Old Bridge, and that's why I fight for it so much. And you know what? Policy has to be kept. Policy needs to be adhered to, and we have to have people who are like-minded to ensure the divisiveness that we have in this town is countered with love and affection for everyone who is diverse, everyone who must be included. And it's just one of those battles. And you know what? Unfortunately, there's different thought processes on the board right now. And I may be a conservative person, but the fact is that what, all men and women and children are created equal, and we have to coexist and work together, and be able to love and assimilate and get along. And when we do that, I think we're stronger as a community.
Right. And in speaking to that, there has been a very not very, it's been, I think at times some of the Board of Ed meetings are can be contentious and divisive. So how will you create a safe and collaborative environment in a device, when there is a contentious Board of Ed meeting? How will what will you do to ensure that it is okay for families to come? It is okay to create a space during public comments where people can speak their, about something that's of importance to them. What will you do to create that safe space?
So, you need board members who are going to speak up firmly about positions. And I've always done that, Steph. I've always, spoken my piece. I've always stood up, for the underprivileged, for the challenged, and I will continue that. And when the ridiculousness and the nonsense comes to this Board of Education from outside pressures, I would want to see a board member question, their intentions and why they're coming here to spew their hatred and their disdain. And quite honestly, a lot of the things that people are talking about that at national levels aren't happening in Old Bridge. We don't have that problem, and we never had that problem until there was a national narrative, and then the radicals decide that it's happening in Old Bridge Public Schools as well, which was never the case. We are a very close knit, loving community, and we would never have allowed this divisiveness to occur. And it was just a narrative to put a wedge between people. It was used to cause dissension and to have a specific campaign platform for people to get elected. People need to realize, Steph, that 65% of our staff live in this town. They are our neighbors, they are our friends, and they're our community peers. And when people are spewing all this nonsense out there that the school district is doing X, Y, and Z, indoctrination, this, that, and the next thing, I know it's false. A lot of us know it's false, but no one counters that argument. And what happens is when that argument is out there, people who are a little different or who are a little nervous will not come out. Mm-hmm. Like to your point, I want to have a safe haven. People want to come and speak their mind without being retaliated against. That's what we want. I want that. Speak your piece. Tell us what is important to you and your child, regardless of who you are, what your family makeup is. and you have a seat at this table. And unfortunately, people would rather use divisiveness to split us apart than bring us together, because you know what? When we're together, we are strong, and we can put down, the cancer that's out there trying to destroy, our cohesiveness and our fabric that bring us together.
Got it. And the last question is, as someone who was on the Board of Ed for 10 years and the left in what, end of 2021?
21. Yes, and
Okay,
21.
so you've been on the sidelines, active, of course, but on the sidelines for 3 years. If elected, what would you do differently in these 3 years if you were elected and starting in January?
So, what I would do differently is really I wouldn't really change what I did. Unfortunately, I was a casualty of the pandemic. Many, board members who were up for election that first cycle after the pandemic, they were used as scapegoats, and the public just went and rolled with what was being spewed out there, which was a lot of untruths and ridiculousness. But you know, that time I spent off the board, I had some health issues, and I was able to reflect on who I am and what I was about, and seeing what was going on, going to meetings, watching on YouTube, and participating through friends and people I know who were still on the board. It angered me that there was not a person on that board that stood up and said, yes, we had others who were new and they couldn't find their footing, but there wasn't a true advocate, someone who would, tell the other side, you know what, knock it off. What you're doing is, causing dissension, it's causing divisiveness. So, going back into that role, I'm going to be a louder supporter and a louder advocate for things that matter to me. I did it for kindergarten. I did it for making sure that the councils were retained in our classrooms. And I'm going to do it again. And, I enjoyed my 10 years. It was a very humbling experience. I met a lot of terrific and wonderful people. I've made lifelong friends. And I know in my heart that what I achieved and helped, bring to our town educationally is a very humbling experience. And, I still hunger to make that difference. I still have the appetite to make sure that all children, when they graduate from the Old Bridge Public Schools, that they all have a fair and equitable opportunity for success in life. I don't care if you're the most challenged child or the most incredibly fluent, educated, and academically smart child. I want each and every child from the bottom to top to have the same opportunities, and they all can thrive as long as there's love, there's the programs, and there's togetherness, and we can make sure that occurs in our town.
Good. Okay, great. Well, I thank you so much for your time, Rich. And I know you're a busy person, so I really appreciate you taking this opportunity. And I do wish you all the best. And got a couple more weeks to go.
Absolutely, and I want to thank you and your team over at CPAG for keeping the narrative straight and making sure that the things that matter for our children with special needs are heard. And you do remarkable work, and it's seen and appreciated. And I appreciate it. I know that when CPAG came to be, and I believe it was 2015, 16. In that
16, yes.
16, I
Yep.
was part of the liaison committee with
Yeah.
that. And,
Yeah.
I was very pleased that, more and more people were recognizing the importance of having, these type of organizations and these avenues to promote what was important for our children. So thank you. And thank, the entire team that you have working with you.
Great. Thank you so much, Rich. Have a good night.
You too, Steph. Take care.